What happens when you take a simple children's book and turn it into a dark movie about a child's make-believe world that helps the boy deal with his loneliness? And then you turn that into a platforming game. Almost a different story entirely. Hey guys, I'm Yusef and this is a video game plot summary of Where the Wild Things Are. The story starts off with a little boy who arrives on the beach in a boat. Right before he gets to the beach, there's a monster or wild thing sitting there tending to the fire. But then he decides he doesn't want to deal with the boy, so he starts running away. The boy sees the wild thing and follows it through the woods and cliffs all the way to another fire. The wild thing is now staring at him with that "come at me bro" face. When the boy moves further into the clearing, he finds out it's a wild thing ambush. They all start to gang up on him, but then the boy yells, "Be still!" and scares the crap out of all the wild things. The boy then gets picked up by one of the wild things with a big roar. It turns out that the wild things were in the middle of starting something and the boy had interrupted it. Well, since they're all already gathered there, it's time to figure out what to do with this intruder. Eat him? Let him go? Make him king? No one knows yet, but until they figure it out, Max can stay in this tent made especially for him that came out of nowhere. The weird thing about this story is that it's hard to nitpick a world where things happen based on Max's imagination. It's even weirder that the movie has such a sad tone. I mean, the game decides not to have a narrator, and it picked up where Max shows up at the beach. So we're just going to skip the whole part where Max has a disagreement with his mom and sister, and runs away and jumps onto the boat? Also, Max only has like 2 or 3 lines in the whole game. I mean, I feel like if they didn't want to make the models to portray the proper story, they could have at least given us an exposition dump as Max is floating in on the dang boat. Oh well. So one day when Max and the wild thing known as Carol were out exploring the island, they ran into this weird portal. Max starts to explore the portal, but Carol stops him, saying that the portal leads to nowhere and that if Max goes in there, he might never come back. Max follows Carol away from the anomaly. Max is still interested though. The next day, Alexander, the goat-looking one, and Douglas, the eagle-looking one, take Max out to face some trials they come up with because they don't want him to be king. When Max gets through all the trials, they tell him there's a cave full of treasure, and kings need treasure. Max goes in there, and the moment he does, the 2 wild things close the cave and leave him there to die. Inside the cave, there are a bunch of black, gooey, disgusting slime venom from Spider-Man sort of creatures. One of the things I don't like about this era of video games is that a lot of video games use gooey black slime as the main bad guys. I hate it because it's really unimaginative. The bad guy is gooey black slime. I mean, eventually every game explains why the slime is significant, but for the most part, it's just colorless crap. It really ticks me off because I imagine if I created a character and someone asked me what it is, I wouldn't want to tell him that it's just some black sludge that's convenient to the plot. Anyway, so Max fights off the black sludge in the cave, and finally Douglas busts through the other side of the cave, slightly disappointed that Max is still alive. But it's okay, because Max has proven himself to Alexander and Douglas, so he will be getting no more crap from them. Maybe. I guess. Alexander's kind of a bitch, though. When Max gets back, Carol is talking to Ira. Ira is complaining about a stomach ache when he barfs up some more black slime. He says he ate it over by the Canyon River. So Carol and Max make their way through the river, but geez, it's infested with black slime. They follow the infestation around until they run into the bull. The bull is funny because his thing is that he just wants to be left alone, right? So every time he gets spotted, he's always like, "Oh, brother," and he gets up and leaves immediately. But this time he gets up to leave and he gets caught by the slime. Max frees the bull and goes with Carol to find the source of the goo, and it seems to be coming out of the side of a mountain. So Max and Carol fight it off by blowing up the side of the mountain with explosive bees. The black goo has been stopped for now. Later, KW and Judith get Max to help fish Ira out of the water. So Max has proved himself to all the wild things. Sort of. In the next scene, Judith, Alexander, Ira, and Douglas are discussing whether Max should be king. Max shows up, and Judith gets so mad at the idea that she eats Max whole and runs away to the edge of the island. But once she gets there, she spits Max out because he tastes horrible. Douglas takes the opportunity to boot Max off the cliff into the water. I guess it's time to point out that Max is basically the adult in the situation. In the real world of the movie, Max is pretty mad because he has no control and he is lonely. But in this world, he has pretty much the same amount of control the real parents have. So when you think about it, every section of your life offers new challenges, and it's really hard to understand the other generation's challenges completely. But that's about where it ends here, because Max is dealing with monsters that can eat him whole and have the strength of 2 bears, and Max is mute. So anyway, Max teams up with K-Dub to keep Douglas and Judith from killing him. During this deadly game of cat and mouse, Max sees another portal and tries to use it but gets blocked by Douglas. Douglas gets spearheaded by KW, but then Max gets thrown under Judith's foot. She is about to crush Max, and then she gets hit with the black goo. Man, these wild things cannot handle black goo at all. Fortunately, it doesn't harm Max too badly because he's freed when Jude gets showered. Max fights off the slime monsters well, but it still corners the 4 of them by the portal. Judith accidentally steps into the portal, so now the others have to follow. They find themselves in the nowhere. Everyone starts to panic, but only Max shows them the way out. So, after saving everyone from dying in the slime and the nowhere, the wild things finally crown Max the king.
Let the wild rumpus start! Woohoo!
Now that Max is king and the rumpus is over, Douglas wants to show Max that the moon is getting closer to the island and is causing destruction all over the island. Again, we were dealing with portals to nowhere and black slime. Then all of a sudden we spin around and now the sky is falling? I would say that this is a pretty hacky storytelling, but it's all in the mind of a little boy, so I'm not going to. Anyway, they go back to the camp and tell Carol, who is the real leader by the way, and Carol figures out that they should just find a new island to live on. So Carol and Max climb to the highest point on the island and see another island. Success! All they need now is a boat. Max and Carol go back to find Ira and Judith have the same plan and a boat. What a coinky-dink. So they go get the boat only to watch their plan go up in smoke. Literally. Because the island explodes. Okay, so what's plan B? Plan B is to get all the wood they can and use it to get on the moon before it explodes the island, I think. So is the island exploding from the slime or from the moon getting closer? Whatever. Alexander runs away like a bitch, and instead of helping with the building effort, K-Dub and Max have to fetch him. They follow Alexander until they get to an entrance that KW can't get through, and then it's only Max following. But as he's moving through, that background is slowly changing. Max catches up to Alexander to find that his favorite spot on the island is Max's real room. Alex just wanted to see it one more time. They go back to the others, and it's just the bull. He wants to go to the nowhere. Max complies and takes him there. The bull says that it feels right. Well, that makes sense given that he spent the whole time being irritated when you found him. With the home camp destroyed by the black goo, the rest of the wild things make their way to the new structure at the highest point of the island. So now it's a mad dash to the top as the black goo is literally hot on their heels. Here's the ending.
Yes, Max!
Okay, so that was the video game plot summary of Where the Wild Things Are. A game that was very hard for me to find, by the way. I mean, it came out on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 3, or Xbox 360, and I really had a hard time finding it. Not that it was, like, super expensive or anything. It's just nobody gave a damn. So weird. The story was based off of a movie that almost nobody saw because it was depressing and it was supposed to spring off of a children's book, which was weird. It's too bad nobody else cared, and it's too bad that the advertisement for the movie didn't really explain that the movie was supposed to be more of a dark type of look into a kid's psyche after he's been neglected and he feels well, he was the only man in a house full of women. One was a teenager, which that teenage kids are tough anyway, and one is a mom who's trying to get laid by other random dudes, and Max is like the head of the household, and other guys are pretty much vying for head of the household right in front of his face. That's gotta be tough. That's gotta be tough. And growing up as a kid in a single parent home myself, a little bit with my dad and a little bit with my mom. Yeah, it's like the people, when you're a single parent, man, you don't have any any filter. Like at some point it's just too fucking much, and you just start losing your shit and taking it out on the kids and stuff like that. Like both of my parents, they held it together as much as they could, but me being a parent with a wife, I kind of understand what my parents had to go through. But I mean, one of the main reasons why I keep my marriage together is because I don't want to be a single parent like my parents. I mean, I love my wife and everything, you know, she's great, but yeah, I don't, like, I've got 2 kids, and I don't want to be in a position where it's just me and 2 kids are coming at me from 2 different angles all the time, even though Tanya my wife would probably be more in the position, and she can't even handle the kids when I'm in the house. Let alone all by herself for longer than a day. Goodness gracious. But anyway, yeah, so you know, the story kind of hits home for me, and I brought that with me into playing the video game. I don't know what, like, it's a very small demographic that would play this video game, right? I mean, you would either remember the storybook and want to continue it, or remember the movie and still play video games. That's a little awkward. But I mean, I guess if you have the imagination it takes to you know, enjoy the storybook, you would have probably saw the movie as an adult, you know, moved on through just like me. But they didn't make a lot of copies, apparently, so, and they didn't sell a lot, so whatever. Anyway, the story inside the video game, I thought it was pretty interesting because it covered, it you know, went a different way. Like within the movie, the Wild Things, they all had problems. They were going out of control, just like Max was in the real world, and Max had to, you know, strengthen himself to become more of an adult so he could lead the Wild Things after they had made him king, right? But and once he understood that, you know, he decided he was going to go home with a more grown up, you know, more mature state of mind, and try to get back at life with the understanding of what it's like to be a parent, you know, very small understanding. However, he didn't come back to that island. You know, being a parent kind of, you wouldn't be able to just kind of escape your kids like that. You know, I can't even close the door to do this thing without my kids knocking on it every couple of minutes, and without my wife coming up with something that she wants to do because she doesn't like the fact that I'm doing something. Yeah, it's like having 3 kids, you know, 3 women. But yeah, on the real, I think that they didn't spend a lot of time trying to establish the story at the beginning. So if you had not seen the movie, it would have been a little rough. Towards the end, where what's his name, Alexander the Goat Boy, goes to the secret place, which is Max's room. That is a nice little parallel. That is a nice little way of connecting Max to the real world. And then it brings forth a lot of different questions, like, was the portal actually, you know, a place where Max's real world would creep in, and that's why the Wild Things didn't want to go there? What was the bull's intention? You know, how come at the end Max actually didn't go anywhere? He just you know, it just seemed like it was one adventure in a bunch of adventures that should have happened in Max's brain, you know, while he was on the island. But then the island got destroyed, so where is he supposed to float away? It was really, what I'm trying to say is it was really hard trying to add this game into the continuity of Max's brain, even if it was it is in his brain and is imaginary, there's still continuity issues within his imagination in this game. Otherwise, you know, I thought the story was charming. If I could somehow pick and choose the things that they would add so I wouldn't need the movie or the storybook in order to play the game, then that would have been golden. Like, I would have loved you know, some sort of exposition dump, like I said earlier at the beginning, to help stabilize me within the world and understand that this is Max's imagination that is kind of real going on in there. So the black slime would make sense, because it might be like his, you know, it takes on some sort of real world form, you know, but the slime didn't make a form. You know, it's just like spiders and shit. You know, it could have been adults. It could have been the boys that tortured his sister. It could have been, or the boys that tortured him and his sister didn't protect him in the movie. It could have been any of the boyfriends that his mom was trying to date. You know, it could have been, they could have had more representation there. And, you know, they kind of didn't do it. And that kind of sucks. You know, his imaginary world, I'm saying his imaginary world shouldn't have been all imaginary. There should have been, the bad thing that should have been happening in his world is that reality is trying to break into it, which is what I think they were trying to achieve, but without bringing any sort of realistic things into the world to cause a danger. It leaves it way more up to interpretation, and it kind of makes it look lazy. I would have rather they held my hand a little bit more on this story, you know? But anyway, what do you guys think about it? Do you think that the real world should have stayed out of the of the imaginary Max world? And do you think that the black goo should have taken any real forms, like any adult forms, or maybe a scary, you know, boyfriend face, or, you know, you think they should have established any of that stuff from the movie and then kind of veered off from the movie story a little bit? Like, what do you guys think would have been the best way they could have handled this? That's my question. And whether or not you like the story in the movie, the book, or you would always think that would you always think that the kids book is the best iteration because it's the first, you know, hipster style, or which one would you prefer, you know? Anyway, you guys have fun, and I'm gonna take care of the kids while my wife colors her mom's hair. Peace.